Ooh, what's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 135 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, the incomparable Zach Jones. Not joining me today is the Freddie Freeman to my Billy Batson, the loser Lester Jones. But that's okay. We don't need him because I got in his stead. Well, not really in his stead because you're always here. But anyway, I got the Indian Shazam to my pasty white Shazam, the phenomenal AJ Singh.
That's right. We just need like 3 more members of our team.
I mean, which Shazam do you identify with the most? They should have had an Indian Shazam, but they do have an Asian Shazam.
I mean, there's not a lot of Indian orphans. Our parents love us. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
If you couldn't have guessed, this is our Shazam-themed episode, our review of Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. Let's just get right into it. I'll bring up the old Rotten Tomatoes here. So anyone who hasn't watched our show, generally what we do is just a short, spoiler-free breakdown and thoughts on the film. And then what we'll do is do a nice, detailed plot synopsis of the film where we go through and try to remember what happened in this thing. No, I took notes. I think I got most of the good stuff here. But right now, oh, by the way, AJ, I don't know if you've looked already, but do you know what this film is at on Rotten Tomatoes?
Probably like 80%.
Well, the audience score is 85%, but the critic is 54%.
Oh, okay.
So they're down.
All right.
Let's see here. So the official, let me get the synopsis here. The official, I can't talk. Official synopsis. From New Line Cinema comes Shazam, Fury of the Gods, which continues the story of teenage Billy Batson, who upon reciting the magic words Shazam, is transformed into his adult superhero alter ego, Shazam. God, could they get Shazam more in that sentence? The film stars Zachary Levi as Shazam, Helen Mirren as Hespera, Lucy Liu as Calypso, Asher Angel as Billy Batson, Rachel Zegler is Anthea, Jack Dylan Grazer is Freddie Freeman, Djimon Hounsou as the Wizard, Grace Caroline Curie is Mary, a.k.a. Mary Marvel, Faith Herman is Darla Dudley, Adam Brody is Superhero Freddy, Ross Butler is Superhero Eugene, DJ Catrona is Superhero Pedro, Megan Good is Superhero Darla, Ian Chen is Eugene Chow, Yovan Armand is Pedro Pena. Man, this is a large cast. Martha Milans as Rosa Vasquez, and Cooper Andrews as Victor Vasquez. Okay. So yeah, just spoiler free. What was your thoughts on the film?
I thought it was pretty kid friendly. Like, if I was younger, I would have probably enjoyed it even more. If I was like probably 13 or so. But I thought it was fun. It's a family friendly movie for the most part, and I think that's what bread and butter is you're not going to get like a Batman type of adult themes in this movie.
I agree. It's almost hard to have perspective on this film as an adult because I kind of agree with you. I think if I was a little kid watching this, I think I would be filled with a lot more wonder,
right? Because
it is very much like a child fantasy, like, oh, what's it like being an adult and exploring that fantasy. And I think that would probably be a lot funner and richer if I was a kid. Now, speaking of kids, the reason Lester's not doing this review is he did go to the movie with us, but he decided to bring his 2 sons along. And like right in the opening, we'll get to it when we get to the kind of plot breakdown, but right in the opening of this movie, there's kind of like a scary sequence. And so his 10-year-old son got a little scared and they ended up leaving. And so me and AJ were the ones that watched the movie. There was one other movie we watched. I think it was Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Right,
we tried bringing him to, and same thing. At one point, he freaked out. I feel sorry for him that he gets freaked out at movies that easily.
Yeah, I think it's all the sensory stuff, like the loud volume and all that stuff.
That could be. These movies are loud.
Yeah. Otherwise, they watch YouTube. They see those scary games that people play on there.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like his threshold of like what freaks him out and stuff. I was like, maybe it's just that he needs exposure therapy. Maybe we should like make him watch Bambi with like the Clockwork Orange like eye spread.
Maybe we're gonna train him to be a serial killer.
But no, that's okay. So yeah, we ended up watching this. For me, like just spoiler-free impressions, like I feel like it's okay. Like I feel like if you watch the first Shazam, like your feelings about this one are going to be similar. Like I think if you love the first Shazam, I don't see why you wouldn't love this movie. If you hated the first Shazam, this one's not going to change your mind at all.
Right.
And if you're like me and watched the first Shazam once and was like, yeah, that's all right, but I never need to watch it again, that's exactly how I feel about this movie. Like, I watch it. It was fine. I have my doubts I'll ever revisit it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but a long time for now. But I certainly, like, if you're like me and thought the first movie was okay, I wouldn't suggest like spending the money to see this in theaters.
Right.
I would say just wait for it to come on HBO Max and you're good.
Right. And I think there are those people who like hesitated to maybe see it because they weren't sure if Shazam would continue into the DC universe moving forward. I think that some of those questions are answered. I think, there will be some remnants of this movie continuing forward.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get into it, but I'm still a little bit confused on that part of it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think you're probably right, but it is a little confusing.
Right.
I'm hoping that Flash will answer some of those questions.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the movie that does that.
I'm hoping so. But yeah, I'm so on this movie. I think if you were a kid, you would get a lot more out of it, unless you're Lester's kids who maybe are freaked out. Is there anything else you want to? I mean, what do you think, just general performance-wise, is like Zachary Levi?
Yeah, I think he does a good job of playing like a young spirited adult, I guess, in that position. Like he's clearly got the immaturity of a child still and all that stuff. So he portrays that pretty well. You can pick up on that. I do think like it kind of had that Thor: Love and Thunder kind of the serious thing going on. Like people are dying. And they're just, all kind of like wacky and silly and fun loving the whole time.
I will say that's one thing is, for me, there's a lot of attempt at humor in this movie. Most of it fell pretty flat for me. Like I definitely didn't LOL at any parts. There were maybe a few parts where I went like, oh yeah, I guess that's amusing.
Right.
There was one part where like in our theater, I heard a woman laughing at one point that I was like, okay, I don't think it's that funny, but I'm like, okay, yeah, probably the most amusing part of the film, though. I kind of wonder how much money do you think this movie is going to make? Because I was kind of surprised because our theater, at least, didn't have as many showings of this movie as I think even Black Adam did.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if they're thinking like maybe it won't make much. And like we saw it on Friday night, and like our particular theater didn't have a lot of people in it.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but from my perspective, I did kind of have that thinking that, well, I don't know how much James Gunn was involved in this movie. I think it was made before he got on board.
Yeah, I don't think he really had any involvement.
Yeah, so I mean, there is that.
He might have had input on one of the like after credit scenes that we'll get into, but beyond that, I don't think he had much.
Right, so I think that could have been what kind of deterred people, because he is taking over now, and it could kind of go in a different direction. And I don't know how much. That's what I was saying earlier. I don't know how much people thought this would be a part of the universe moving forward.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if that'll have it. I mean, I think for like Flash and even Aquaman 2, like those characters are big enough to where I think the whole thing of people were like, well, everything's just going to reboot anyway. Like maybe it won't affect those ones as much.
Right.
But like, yeah, this one, I think some people that were on the fence probably were like, well, it's just Shazam, and like it's probably going to reset anyway. So
yeah.
I can definitely see that affecting.
I was thinking the same thing going into it. I thought maybe this is going to be like a one-off, and it just gets washed down the drain afterwards.
But yeah, I am kind of curious to see like how this does box office wise. Ant-Man, I don't think we talked about this, but Ant-Man, it did. That first opening weekend was like the biggest opening of the Ant-Man movies, but then it kind of fell off a cliff and didn't do very well overall. So like, I don't know if it's superhero fatigue or just like particular movies that aren't doing well.
I mean, just talking about Marvel Phase 5, I think we're on.
Yeah, I think we just started 5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't had the best start. Some of the shows have been lackluster, and the movies have been kind of mediocre. Some of them, so it hasn't really built up the same steam that we had after like Civil War and Winter Soldier and those kinds of movies, which I thought were better.
I do feel like with these things though, like everything can be like forgiven again once you get like a couple good things.
Right.
Like once you like have a couple good things in a row, people will get back on board again.
Yeah, once you start tying in a few pieces from each movie and make it like an interesting, intriguing story, then all of a sudden that recipe's back together for Infinity War.
Oh, I did have one thing I wanted to talk to you about that is still in the spoiler-free zone. Mm-hmm. So like, the kids, they say Shazam, they turn into their super-powered selves. Now, my thinking is that like what they look like as adult superheroes is like presumably what they would look like as adults if they were in like good shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like, Mary Marvel, because she's already an adult, like she looks the same as Mary and as Mary Marvel. Mm-hmm. But like they even mention like that Billy is like almost 18, almost an adult, but like him and Zachary Levi do not look alike. And like I don't know. It's like I thought that was a little bit weird. I mean, I get that like they can't really do anything about that. Like you kind of have to have an adult a different actor playing that role. But I just thought it was a little bit funny.
Yeah, that's true. I think they probably should have initially changed Mary up a little bit. But
also, it probably wasn't as jarring in the first movie because the kid that played Billy was a lot younger.
Yeah.
But like now that that's the problem with kids, man. That once they get in that teenage group, like they just age so quickly.
I couldn't even recognize him. Like I was like, wait, that's Billy Batson? Is a grown man now?
In Avatar 2, there's very slight spoiler for Avatar 2. There's one like human kid that's basically raised in the Na'vi. Mm-hmm. And James Cameron was talking about how like, he had to film multiple movies at once because he's like, that kid is already too big. Like, like he's already aged out. Like he can't go back and reshoot scenes with that kid because he's already like so much taller, so much bigger. Just so looks so wildly different. He's like, if I had to maybe do something with one of the kids that play the Na'vi, he can use the technology just to digitally recreate the Na'vi and maybe do voice or whatever, But he's like, with that kid, we had to get everything because like that kid's already like so much bigger than he was in the movie, So it's interesting, with kids.
It's always a risk.
Well, enough of the small talk. Should we get into more spoiler-filled territory?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, spoilers ahead. So let's see here. Let me get out my notes. I did put down as much as I could remember. I'll have you, fill in the blanks and feel free to jump in whenever you want to talk about something. Right. So as we open the movie, we open inside a Greek museum. At least I think that's what they say is it's in Greece, right?
I'm not sure. I think it was.
I think later on they say. Yeah. I mean, that's what I thought at the beginning, and we're dealing with all this like Greek mythology in here, and so I kind of figure. So on display is the staff that Billy broke at the end of the first movie. And like, it's been so long since I watched the first movie. I didn't remember him breaking that, but they even at some point in the movie, like flash back to him breaking and showing it. So I think Professor Ivo was the villain of the first movie. He was using the staff. Billy got it and broke it so that he couldn't use it anymore. I thought this was interesting and I didn't think about it right away, but so there's this guy who's like, one of the guys that works at the museum, and he kind of like is the tour guide for that part of the museum, and like tells people about the staff and stuff. he is played by an actor. I looked it up. His name is Rizwan Manji. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but he plays the janitor on Peacemaker.
Oh, that's right.
So I just thought, Marvel, I guess is like very. I don't know if they're still as clamped down on this, but like I've heard at Marvel, like if you play a certain role, even if it's a tiny role in the MCU, like that's who you are in the MCU, and they don't like to have you play another person.
Okay.
But this guy, I don't know if this slipped through the cracks or DC is just not as on the ball of this stuff. But or maybe that guy has a twin brother.
Or maybe it's just like a fun little callback. Like Marvel has that one guy who's always on the bus pointing things out, and who'll be like, "Do a flip, Spider-Man."
Right. But yeah, I just thought it was funny that they ended up using that same actor.
Yeah.
So Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu show up dressed as like I guess Greek soldiers. They got like the big like
Yeah, they're like Spartans or something.
yeah, Spartan helmets and everything. And they are after the staff. So they get the staff, and security tries to stop them. But Lucy Liu has like these, I wrote down like whisper zombie powers where she like whispers in the ear of people, and it like kind of like takes them over. And so then they,
Well, it's weird because initially they're saying that they didn't have any powers at all, and then they touch the staff, which is broken, and each one touches half of the staff, and they get their powers back. And then she starts whispering and stuff, and all that stuff starts going off. But initially, I don't think they even had powers. So trying to break into that thing, somebody could have stopped them.
Yeah, well, I was a little bit murky on their whole backstory because they mentioned, that like their magic was taken from them or their father or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't know if they were. Because like the staff, because it's broken, like I was under the impression that it didn't have like any magic in it, but something did happen when they touched it, right? So are we to believe they were like totally powerless until they touched it? Is that what you think?
That's the impression I got.
So maybe they got just like remnants of magic and it was enough to boot some of their powers?
That's what it seems like. Yeah, the staff still had something left in it. And it's strange because we'll get further into this, but they were initially from a different world, it seems.
Yes.
And so I don't know how they got to Earth from where they were from without powers.
It's never explained.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
But yeah, it does seem like they're not just like from ancient Greece necessarily. It seems like maybe they're from like some alternate like magical land or something.
Some sort of god realm or something.
Yeah. And also, like, so in this beginning scene, which is the scene that freaked out Lester's kid, is Lucy Liu, she starts like whispering. She whispers into one guy's ear, and he becomes like a zombie, and he goes and attacks another person, whispers into their ear. And I'm thinking like, we'll get to they kind of contain this group eventually, but like if they didn't, would that just be like a zombie virus that spread across their globe?
Yeah, I don't know how that hasn't happened before. Like considering that they ruled over humans before too. Like there was nothing to stop it from taking over. I don't understand how it was.
I mean, yeah, it seems like she alone could really rule the earth if she wanted.
Yeah, they only stopped it because they encased everybody, but otherwise it could have totally kept going.
Yeah. Huh. And Helen Mirren, she has like telekinesis where she can just like stop people, freeze them.
Well, she has like elemental powers, so she controls the elements, I suppose. I don't know.
So then, and this is what contains it. They basically turn everybody into stone.
Yeah.
Like she makes dust out of the statue and it just goes around, turns everybody into stone. And poor Peacemaker janitor guy, they tip him over, bust him.
And this is where you start seeing the mean streak in Calypso.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense that Lucy Liu is like hates humanity.
Yeah,
she's definitely the more villainous of the two.
Yeah.
Helen Mirren mentions because I think Lucy Liu says like, why don't we just go like dominate the humans or something to that effect, and Helen Mirren's like mentions that they must be careful because like the wizard must have chose like a deserving champion, which cuts to Shazam, and this was like a scene in the trailer where he's like talking to a pediatrician as though he's like a psychiatrist, and he's like saying he's not worthy of his powers,
right.
And he basically kind of recaps like the first film here. Basically, this is exposition. Like, oh yeah, my mom abandoned me. My dad walked out on me. I fought all these like all these monsters or something of this professor that was trying to kill me. Basically, recaps the first film. He mentions like he's got to go deal with a hostage situation, which is really like Billy playing like a Call of Duty type game with his family. And so they have this scene in their home where we're just kind of reintroduced to all the Shazam like family characters. Freddy, he's the one that walks on a crutch, and he's actually the one that's probably used the most in this movie.
Right.
There's Mary, who's like the adult one, kind of. Darla was like the little sister type. And then we got...
She's like kind of nerdy, I guess.
Yeah. And then we got heavyset Latino Shazam, who's gay.
Pedro.
Yeah. And then Asian...
Yeah.
Asian Shazam, who I don't remember their names, so I'm just like Asian Shazam. Let's see.
And there's also that kind of conversation he has with his pediatrician about how he's been overbearing, or does he mention that he's been the one trying to keep the family together?
Yes, they make this whole point about like how he's very like trying to keep the family together. Like he's always telling them like if there's a mission, they go all or none. Like they're all going or none of them are going. But like all of them are like trying to be independent and kind of doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. And so you get this sense that because he grew up kind of like on his own, that now that he has a family, he's like, he's got this psychological thing where he's like desperate to keep everybody together.
Right.
But speaking of this whole thing, he sees that like Freddy is listening to his earbuds, and like he noticed that Freddy is like trying to sneak out. Freddy hears that there's like a bridge in the city that's collapsing, and he's gonna go out on his own, which I don't know if I necessarily understand that unless like Freddy's just like trying to get some glory all on his own or something, because it seems like that's a job that like he would be okay with like having the others go out on. But anyway, since Billy catches them, like they do decide to go out, and we get that shot from the trailer where like all like 6 kids are walking in the alley. They say Shazam, and they're instantly transformed into their Shazam selves. Oh, and also, I just wanted to mention, because this comes back later, like, Billy at this point refuses to call his foster mom. Right. Like, he calls her Rosa or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
So now we get kind of a montage with the bridge collapsing. We get Bonnie Tyler's Holding Out for a Hero, of course.
Oh, right.
I'm never going to criticize playing that song.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I love that song. But yeah, we get them all with their hero moments. They're saving everybody. At one point, Darla like steals like these cute cat
kittens,
from
I thought it was a fun little bridge scene, showing like a calamity happening and everybody working together to solve it. And it went on for a while, and it kind of got worse and worse as like the bridge was getting in worse condition and eventually collapsing. And the whole scene just kind of worked for me. I thought it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I thought it was like a fine like introduction scene to like. Another thing is like if someone missed the first movie, it gives you the sense of like, okay, so this is what they can do. Right. This is what they look like as their superhero selves. It was a good like introduction scene. So they save all the people, but the bridge still ends up collapsing, and this causes the media to call them something like the Fiascos or the Flying Fiasco. I don't remember them, but. That is something I've seen in other movies too, even though I can't think of a good example, where it's like, I think people would be a little more grateful.
Spider-Man, he gets it bad.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah, like no matter how many people he saves, like there's going to be something where like, no, he's a menace and he's actually like trying to kill people, but he somehow saved them.
Right?
It's always like so convoluted that people wouldn't just be like, yeah, he's a good guy.
Right. He's in the streets fighting the bad guy.
Oh, and also just So Darla like kidnaps she takes one of the kittens, but later says she's going to give it back, so she's still good or whatever. She does mention, like, I think she calls it. This is like a little Easter egg in the Shazam comics. There's like a tiger. I think it's called like Tawny the Tiger or something, and she calls it that. So it was just like a little Easter egg there.
Okay.
Billy has a team meeting with everybody at the Rock of Eternity. But again, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Agent Shazam is studying all the like doors that go to various places. Now, I don't know if you'll remember this because, like I said, I just saw the first Shazam movie when it came out, and I never revisited it. And I did remember there was something about them going through doors that transported them to other places, but I couldn't remember if they just had like a magical thing to let them go to any door. I didn't remember this whole like hall of weird doors.
Yeah, I did not remember that at all.
And which we'll get to it, but there's a scene later on where I'm like, well, can they conjure doorways themselves? Because they conveniently use one at one point that I'm like, how did they do this? But we'll get to it. And also like Mary is studying like a science book or something. Now, I was a little confused with her because she mentions like something like, I didn't know if she was actually like studying for college or because I thought she mentioned something about like, how she got a job but maybe should be going to college or something. So I wasn't sure if she was actually going to college.
She wanted to go to college, but I think she had put that on the back burner or something because of the family.
But basically, I think everybody kind of leaves, and then it's just Mary and Billy. And Mary tells Billy that he's going to age out of the system in a few months. And so, like, the checks that his foster parents are getting for him will end at that time. So he kind of needs to think about doing what she's doing, which is getting a job and or moving out and, like, being an adult, So now we find out that the wizard didn't die in the first movie, but was instead imprisoned. Now, this is another thing. Like, I hadn't watched the first movie, and so I didn't remember this. But apparently, the wizard like gets turned into like a pile of ash. They mention it, and was seemingly dead. But apparently, he wasn't dead. He was transported to this like prison, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
I'm not sure why.
As soon as the staff broke, I guess the barrier or whatever was keeping them like disconnected from that other realm. I guess that broke down, and then once that broke down, they had the ability to capture him. But I don't know if they had magic to catch him, so I don't know how that worked.
Oh yeah, I forgot. They do mention later on in the movie that as soon as he like broke the wand or the staff, like that did cause like the opening between, I guess, the world that Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu come from and their world. So I guess, again, a little confusing on their backstory.
Yeah.
So now the Daughters of Atlas, because wherever this prison is, that's where they are too. They go there and they basically force the wizard to mend the wand and make it magical again. But we see him do something with the wand, and basically he purposely like gets a splinter of the magical wood in the wand like to go under his fingernail.
Oh, yeah, that's horrible.
And then like I think I'm probably missing a scene in between here, but he then we see him like pull out this bloody splinter out of his fingernail, and he apparently because it's magic, he uses that. He turns it into this thing that can go send Billy a message. So now Billy is like having this like Wonder Woman sex dream kind of where like he takes Wonder Woman to this like fancy dinner, and just as he's about to kiss her, like that's when the wizard like interrupts the dream and like takes over the body of Wonder Woman basically, which definitely looked weird.
Yeah, because it had still her body and his face.
right. So I guess that was kind of amusing, but a little weird.
Yeah.
Again, not like laugh out loud funny, but you're like, oh, okay.
Right.
Maybe if I was a kid, I would laugh at this. So yeah, he warns Billy in the dream that the daughters of Atlas are going to be coming for him, basically. Now, when he tells people about this dream, like, they just trust him. They're just like, not like, oh, you had a weird dream. Everybody has weird dreams, pal.
Right.
Billy wakes up from that dream to discover that Freddy went out superheroing on his own again because, like, his window's open and Freddy's gone.
Right.
We get another quick needle drop. The Beastie Boys sabotage. And Freddy apparently is going to go save this armored truck. But we don't actually see that because it cuts directly to Freddy in school. He meets this cute new girl in school. He has a meet cute with Anne, who is the new girl in school. We see Freddy gets bullied, but Anne kind of likes how he stands up to the bullies.
Yeah,
like,
I think he was protecting her at one point, and she thought that was pretty cool, like, because she didn't really need protection.
right. And we get like a random cameo by Diedrich Bader, who's the like a teacher there. But he like seemingly, like, even though he knows that Freddy just got bullied, he doesn't really help him.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I was thinking, okay, he's gonna like pack the bullies off or something. Yeah. No, he doesn't. So Anne mentions that she heard about Freddy sitting with Shazam and Superman, which happens at the end of the first movie.
Right.
So they have this lunch scene at the cafeteria where, like, they're sitting at that same table. So Billy shows up and tells, and like quickly meets Anne, but like tells Freddy that he needs to talk to him like right now, like it's an emergency. So Billy and Freddy go outside, and Billy basically tells Freddy that like there's an emergency, we're gonna have a meeting and you have to be there. Mm-hmm. And Freddy agrees to it. But then Freddy basically flakes on that meeting and to hang out with Anne some more.
On a rooftop.
Right.
I guess it's a school's rooftop, right?
Yes. Okay. So basically there's two scenes going on right now. The meeting with Billy and the other team members, and then Anne and Freddy on the roof of the school. So Billy tells the others about his message from the wizard. Gay Hispanic Shazam shows the team this magical library that they apparently didn't know about.
Yeah, how did they...
like, they never explored this Rock of Eternity, like, just him, I guess. And anyway, there's this magical library where there's, like, flying books and stuff. And he introduces them to Steve, which is, like, this sentient pen that can, like, write letters, like, or find him, like, books and answer like, questions for him and stuff. It's like Chat GPT, but a sentient pen. And so they want to basically get information on the Daughters of Atlas. So now it cuts to Freddy and Anne on the high school roof, like we were talking about. And Freddy says he can call a superhero friend, basically trying to impress Anne.
Yeah.
Now, this I thought was a little bit weird. So, like, he basically gets on the phone, pretends that he's calling his superhero friend, and he kind of walks behind the stairwell there that's on the top of the building. And then, of course, like, he shows up as his superhero self. And I wrote, he has a conversation with Anne, who talks about Freddy like he's not there and doesn't seem to question that he's obviously gone.
Right.
I just found this so weird because it's like, she's not like, hey, Freddy, where'd you go? Like, you have to be like right there. But no, I'm just going to talk to... So like, a part of me was like, okay, does she like already know that he's him and is just kind of like that was my thought, but then we find out that's not the case. Right. So I was like, okay, then that makes it really confusing.
She has no object permanence.
So now we cut back to the team, and they discover that the Daughters of Atlas, Hespera, who is Helen Mirren, and Calypso, who is Lucy Liu, stole the staff, and they have a third sister named Anthea, who Billy instantly puts together is Freddy's new friend Anne, even though he met her for literally like a second.
Oh, well, Billy's a hater. He doesn't believe that his friend can make a girlfriend.
So I just thought that was a really convenient thing that happened. So now we cut back to the roof, and Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu show up. They zap Freddy with the staff, which removes his superpower. Lucy Liu... oh, yeah, and I wrote, Anne seems shocked to find out that superhero was actually Freddy.
Right.
And I was just like, once that happened, I was like, what? So I guess, I mean, we know now that since she was working with her sisters, I guess the reason she was at that school was just because Shazam had been seen there before with Freddy, and not because she already knew that Freddy was a superhero. But yeah, I was a little confused because it makes that scene before, like I was saying, just seem a little stupid.
Yeah.
This was, I felt like, a little bit dark and unnecessary, but so Dietrich Bader shows back up, and Lucy Liu uses her whisper powers to make Dietrich Bader just, like, jump off the roof and kill himself.
Yeah, like, I was kind of hoping Dietrich Bader would be, like, a mainstay. Like, he'd be, like, the school, representative in these movies. But, yeah, they just had him walk off the side of the building. And I guess, that's to drive home that, Lucy Liu's character is this, like, mean, kind of sadistic character.
Now, we find out that even though, like, Anne is, like, trying to fulfill, like, one of the goals of her sister, she is still, like, basically a good person.
Right.
And we find out just in a second that she has powers of her own. So you would think that maybe, just maybe, she would have tried to save Dietrich Bader's life, but she didn't.
True, yeah.
I mean, maybe she didn't want to, I don't know, disappoint her sisters right there or something, but...
Yeah, she seemed like she was just kind of, like, going with whatever they wanted.
Yeah. So in the distance, like, Freddy, I guess, spots Billy flying towards him, trying to save him. And so now we're introduced to Anne's powers, and she basically has, like, these kind of Doctor Strange powers where she can, like, manipulate, like, her surroundings. So, like, she starts making, like, skyscrapers, like, try to hit Billy. A part of me, though, is like, what's happening to the people on the streets and stuff when this is happening or in those buildings? Like, are they getting, like, slammed around at 90 miles an hour?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, do the people in the buildings even know what's happening right now? Like,
because in Doctor Strange, they at least make that mirror dimension where they're, like, only fucking up the mirror dimension and the real reality still left untouched.
Yeah.
Whereas here, I'm like, what's happening to everybody?
Yeah. She's literally, like, she's like plate tectonics over here.
I'm like, I think you just killed, like, thousands of, maybe millions of people.
Trying to stop Shazam.
But anyway, she makes Billy, like, fly right into a skyscraper and slows him down. The rest of the team show up, but the Daughters of Atlas escape by taking Freddy hostage. So they, like, carve a platform out of the roof and fly him out. Billy, like, ends up pursuing them, but is cut off because they cast, like, this magic dome over the city. Mm-hmm. Now, why did they do that exactly?
Well, I think their realm was kind of treated that way when they were cut off from the real world, I guess. So they said that their realm died in a similar way. So I guess they wanted to do the same thing to this world.
Yeah, I was a little confused by that. I didn't know, like, if they were like, okay, we eventually need to get the power from all these champions, so maybe we want to try to contain them in one area, or, like, I just wasn't sure exactly. Mm-hmm. And also, like, I feel like maybe, like, the people this is in Philadelphia, right?
I think so, yeah.
Like, they don't seem as freaked out by the dome as, like, you would maybe think they would be.
Yeah, I mean, they're annoyed by it. There's a scene later where a guy's like, hey, what are you going to do about this dome? It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's as big a deal as you would think it would be for them.
It'd be devastating for their economy.
I know.
Also, like, food-wise, I know they're not growing food inside that dome.
Right. Yeah, people aren't as freaked out about the dome as they should be.
Yeah.
So they go back. The team goes back to the library, and Billy has Steve the Pen write a letter that can fly to the daughters of Atlas. And I didn't even pick up that this was going to be a plot point at first, but he's like kind of playing with this black apple in the library, and I didn't even like put together that it was like anything. And like it eventually comes back, but like did you at that point think that that was going to play any part in the movie? I just thought it was like set dressing.
I thought it was just because like there was a point where the wizard tries to tell Billy during that dream, I think, to not give them and it starts with like an S, and I
Like
figured
the seed?
seed, yeah, and I figured that maybe the apple was the seed.
Okay. Yeah, they do mention like something about a magical seed. But yeah, I guess I just didn't put it together that apple was anything. So Billy's plan is to lure Helen Mirren in a trap to get Freddy back, where they'll like lure her in, but then they'll basically all like secretly be there and like gang up on her.
Right.
So now we cut to Freddy, who we find out was in prison next to the wizard. And like they have this whole like back and forth joke where like the wizard calls him by the wrong name, and it's never that funny, but they keep doing it throughout the movie.
Yeah, the wizard character in these movies is my favorite character so far.
Oh, really?
Just because like I think there's a lot of history and intrigue behind this character that we don't know about yet. And he was part of this war against the gods, and he's the wizard who gives people powers, and he's thousands of years old. I'd really like to learn more about his character.
Yeah, and I can't really remember like in the first movie like if it really got into his backstory or not. I think like we found out he was just like old as hell and needed to give his power to someone. Right. Oh, and he'd been like searching for a long time to find Billy, right?
Yeah,
or somebody who was worthy of the power. And then like Billy's worthy, and he instantly shares it with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, which is actually kind of smart. You got like 6 Supermen walking around or whatever.
That's true. That's true. Also like not that it's important, but like in the earlier scene when they were at the library, like the pen writes down what Shazam means, like the wisdom of Solomon, and like there's like the power of Zeus and like the speed of Mercury, and I forget all the other ones, but that's directly from the comics as well. It wouldn't really make sense, but it would kind of be cool if, like, since he shared his powers, like, if each of them, like, embodied one of those characteristics and was a little more different. So, like, there was, like, a really speedy one that was more like the Flash, and then, like, a power. I think that would maybe be cool.
I thought that would be cool, too.
They do kind of mention, because, like, you're supposed to have the wisdom of Solomon, but Billy's kind of an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have made sense to make the nerdy girl like the wisdom one,
right? Or even maybe Mary.
Yeah, right.
Like I forget what all the power, but yeah, I think that would have been cool because really they just all see when they're superhero form, they're just kind of all the same.
Yeah.
And I think it would be cool if like maybe Billy was the powerful one, and one of them was a speedster, and I forget all the other characteristics. Like one of them was really smart and strategic, and like yeah, I think that would maybe be cooler and make them have their own identities a little more.
Then they definitely have to work as a team together too.
So yeah, Freddy and the Wizard are in prison. They're taken before the daughters of Atlas. Lucy Liu starts to torture Freddy using her whisper powers to make him give up the names of the other kids. But just as he's going through that, their flying note shows up. And Helen Mirren reads it. And basically this was another humor thing where like he didn't realize that when he was dictating the letter that Steve the Pen was writing down every single word. Yeah. And so like we get his commentary and stuff, or him talking to the other people. Wow,
that was actually okay. I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, that's the part where the woman in the theater we were in actually was laughing. I was like,
oh, okay.
And then I was like, yeah, it's an amusing bit, I guess, but I didn't find it that funny.
Right.
After that, Freddy and the Wizard are thrown in a pit with a wooden dragon that's, I guess. he makes people feel like fear, like to a high degree, so they kind of get like frozen in place. The dragon almost kills them, but then all of a sudden they're saved by Anne, who is still sweet on Freddy.
I mean, that seemed kind of forced to me, the whole Anne and Freddy thing, just because she's a thick 6,000-year-old god, and you're telling me she was impressed by this mortal after like 5 minutes or something?
Yeah, and we'll get to that 6,000-year-old thing later, but like, I don't like. They had decent chemistry. Like, I didn't mind like their kind of meet cute and flirting and thing, but yeah, you're probably right. Like, she probably wouldn't have been that impressed with him. So I thought this was a little weird and convenient too. Anne brings them to this labyrinth, and she's like, "Okay, take like 2 lefts and a right or something,
Right.
and you'll get to the center of the labyrinth. At the center of the labyrinth, there's a door that'll lead back to your world." And I'm like, bitch, you couldn't just take us right to the door with your power? Like, we got to go through this time-consuming maze.
That could potentially kill you if you don't find where you're supposed to go.
And also, like, it seems like when they threw them down in that pit, like, the other two were seemingly just going to let the dragon kill them.
Yeah.
But, like, did they not, even as a backup plan, want Freddy? Because, like, that's the whole thing is, like, before they were, like, saying, like, we'll return Freddy, you know, if you'll give us your powers or whatever. Like, I don't know. I guess they are villains, but I was like, did they not want him in case the other people would, like, kind of go along with that?
Just for leverage.
Just for leverage, yeah. So now Helen Mirren meets with Shazam at this like outdoor restaurant. She says that she's trying to get back the magic that was stolen from her family. I did like kind of like this line she tells Billy where she's like, you know, if someone stole your gold and gave it to your neighbor, like, would you try to get it back? And I was like, I kind of like that explanation.
Yeah.
As far as how she feels about it. So now I thought this was pretty stupid. So Billy like springs his trap. So all his other like team members show up, but then I put he stupidly forgets about Lucy Liu altogether. Like, who instantly shows up. She zaps away the gay Hispanic Shazam's power. I forget the character. Was it Pedro? Pedro. Shazam fights Helen. He like hits her and like knocks her like underground, like under the street or whatever.
Which I thought was hilarious. Like, if you actually imagine Helen Mirren getting pummeled into the ground. I was like, are they going to show her trying to get up? Like, her old self trying to...
It is kind of weird, like, this woman, you know, is, like, really old, like, getting the shit beat out of her. Yeah. Also, like, we're rooting for the guy that's beating up this old lady. But really, once he gets down there, like, Helen Mirren basically starts like beating the shit out of him. Like, she's definitely like seems more powerful, and I think eventually like Mary and maybe Darla get down there as well, and she like beats them and gets them like wrapped around in wire and stuff.
Yeah, this confuses me about their like power scale, because like they're pretty much Supermen, right? And you're telling me these cables are like binding them and like crushing them?
Yeah.
You have to suspend your disbelief there.
I mean, I guess we're to believe that Helen Mirren's like telekinetic powers are also very powerful.
Oh, maybe she's the one who's keeping the rope like bound like that.
I guess so.
Okay.
But it does seem like what's the limit on her power, you know?
Right.
It's as powerful as the writers need her to be.
Yeah, I mean, they have the same powers of the gods that she does, right?
Yeah, it would seem like even if she's like, her powers are powerful, that once you get like 3 people with like almost Superman level power,
yeah,
she would be easily beaten.
Yeah.
She gets the upper hand on Shazam until he finally uses his speed to knock her out, because basically she's like forming this like ball of like, I don't know, concrete and stuff, and she makes it fly at him, but then he moves at the last second and it hits her. So the team escape with Helen Mirren's body. So this is what confused me. They escape with Helen Mirren's body through an outhouse door. So to me, they never explain this. Did they have the power to make the outhouse door a portal door, or did they choose that location because they found out, oh, we have a door that leads to this location? That I don't think they ever say.
I also wondered, did they have the staff? Did they get the staff away from Lucy Liu at the time? Maybe they used that to make a door? I'm not sure.
I don't think they get the staff away from her at this point. I mean, I could be misremembering, but I don't think they do.
Right. I might just be trying to put that together. I don't know. I don't know how they made the door there.
I mean, if they mentioned this, I missed it, but they could have covered their tracks by saying like, oh, we picked the location because we have a door.
Right.
But also, does it make sense for a porta-john door that's always moving and could be anywhere to...
Yeah, and those doors seem like they're going to pretty specific, like, ancient places, like the labyrinth and, like, this place of nightmares and death or dreams or whatever it is. Like, a porta potty would be, like, a weird place for one of those doors to go to.
Or does the hallway of doors literally have, like, every door ever? Like, and they found one that goes to a port. It would make more sense if they found one that went to a porta-john and then they themselves moved the porta-john where they needed it to be.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
But they don't. They never say. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure I could watch the first movie and find out more about the doors, but I didn't. So here we are. So yeah, they escape through the door. And this I thought was some flimsy writing that eventually limbs to, like, once they get through the door, they're like, oh, we can really still smell that outhouse smell. They mentioned that to set up something later that I think it's kind of weak. But so Shazam imprisons Helen Mirren and he at the Rock of Eternity, and I forget what his exact line was, but he tells her that basically only champions like them could escape. Or I wish I remembered his exact line, because basically after they leave, she instantly escapes. So I'm like, what was he talking about?
I don't know. I don't remember that part.
He does mention something like about how maybe only the champions can come to the Rock of Eternity, but then, like, I don't remember. He had some line that made it seem like she couldn't get out, and then she instantly gets out, and I was like, what the hell? So she goes to the library and she steals the black apple, and we basically find out that this was her plan all along to get captured.
Yeah, they left her in a cell with nobody watching her, and they all went away. And then somebody came back just to see.
Yeah, because Darla was like, "Oh, I'll bring her the yellow Skittles that aren't very good," right. And like found out she escaped. But I'm like, I can't think of like any great examples off the top of my head, but the whole "I got captured on purpose" cliche, I think, is used too much.
Yeah,
like you do see that in a lot of fiction.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's too many holes in that plan, to get captured by like 5 or 6 Supermen, and then have your plan to steal from them and escape.
Right. Yeah, it seems like if that was her plan, she could have got captured, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
More easily. Maybe that would have tipped him off. So now, and this is exactly why I guess they didn't have Anne bring Freddy and the wizard directly to the door, because like they needed them to be wasting enough time like trying to get to the center of the labyrinth that they would get there just as Helen Mirren was stepping through the doorway. So basically they see her take the black apple and turn it to gold, and the wizard recognizes that's the seed of life that they were after, and that the daughters of Atlas can now use to regrow their kingdom. So now, instead of going through the doorway, Freddy and the wizard basically follow and eavesdrop on the daughters. So Anne wants to plant the seed back in their magical homeland. But Lucy Liu wants to plan on Earth and wipe out humanity. And Helen Mirren, I guess, is a little bit in between, but we get the sense that she's seemingly more on Anne's side. Yeah, I thought the plan, was to plant it in our homeland. So now we cut back to the team, and that's when they realize that Helen Mirren had escaped. So they track down the door that she used because they say it still smelled like the outhouse from earlier.
Right.
And I was like, this seemed like weak ass writing to me. Like, I don't know what the better play would have been, but I was like, they didn't put much thought into this. Like, it's the best. Like, I think this was like a second pass over the script or something where they're like, oh, we need to find a reason of how they found the door, and that's what we went with. But to me, it didn't make much sense.
Yeah, it was kind of weak.
So Freddy tries to sneak in and steal the apple, and he gets it, but he instantly like tips over like a cauldron or something, and they catch him. But Shazam shows up at that time, distracts him, and grabs the wand. And then this was like, I thought, really kind of stupid because like I guess they need Lucy Liu to have the wand. So like he basically like tosses it to Freddy, but because Freddy's unpowered and Lucy Liu is powered, like she easily just like grabs it back. Yeah. But like Freddy's close enough that he touches his cane to the staff, says Shazam, and he gets his powers back. So now Shazam, Freddy, the Wizard, and I don't remember, did the rest of the Shazam team actually follow them into there, or did they stay back in the...
I'm not 100% sure on that.
I think they weren't in that scene. But Shazam, Freddy, and the Wizard escape with the apple, but Lucy Liu still has the staff. So Lucy Liu now sicks the wooden fear dragon on them, and we see it like break through the door at the Rock of Eternity. So now they all rush into like their foster parents' bedroom and reveal that they're all superheroes to them. And like before that though, like even their parents were like asleep in bed. And I was even at that point thinking like, oh well, they're not too concerned about the dome over the city or anything. Like they're living their lives as normal. And also like the timeline like gets caught in your head to where you're like, okay, like how long have they been gone to their parents and doing this stuff? But I don't know.
Also, this movie continues the trope of like average-looking guy with hot wife.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, that guy would never be married. So yeah, they have this scene where like they reveal their superheroes, and they have this also where at the same time, I guess Pedro reveals that he's gay, and like everybody's like, yeah, we knew that. Yeah. So that's fine. Yeah. So they all leave. Just as the dragon rips through and totally destroys their house. And now Lucy Liu is like riding on top of the dragon. So like they're in their van or whatever, and Lucy Liu catches up to them. And she starts zapping people with the staff, and she basically takes away everybody's powers, and they go back to kids except for Shazam and Mary. I think Shazam throws the apple to Mary, and she goes flying away. So Lucy Liu starts pursuing her. Lucy Liu catches up to her, zaps her power away too, causing her to fall. And as Billy saves Mary, he goes and catches and saves Mary, but that gives Lucy Liu time to get away. Did I miss anything in there?
No, that's about right.
Okay. So now Lucy Liu goes to like this Philadelphia sports arena, and she plants the apple seed, and the tree of life starts to bloom. So now its roots like start growing into the city. We see it like, breaking streets, breaking buildings. It like almost impales this like woman. And if that's not bad enough, now the roots of the tree, it starts like giving birth to like the Greek monsters. So we see like griffins, harpies, minotaurs, and cyclopses. Yeah. Now, one thing I was wondering is like somewhere down the line, like Anne mentions that like because she planted the tree here, like it's kind of corrupted and giving birth to like these things. But I'm like, in their magic Greek god realm, like, would it not have given birth to these same type of creatures that are known to be there?
The way she explains it is that it grows differently over there. It's a thing of beauty and prosperity or whatever. But over here, it turns it's toxic and poisonous, and it turns the land against us.
Of course, our world has to be toxic.
Typical.
But yeah, basically these monsters start, wreaking havoc. Okay. Now I might have like order of operations here a bit mixed up, but I think I get the gist of it. So now, the foster parents and the whole team in the van, they basically end up parking at the top of this car park. Anne arrives to tell them that I forget her exact words here, but I think the gist is like she's going to try to stop what's going on, stop her sisters, and like, stop the chaos that's going on. And so now she has this scene with Freddy that you referenced earlier, where she's, he tells her like, no, don't do it. Like, you're in danger or something. You're young. And she's like, actually, I'm 6,000 years old. And then they end up kissing. And like, there's even a line from like the foster mom or something. It's like, I'm not sure if this is right. And a part of me was thinking like, what if this was reversed where like Anne was their kid and Freddy was a 6,000-year-old god that presented as a teenager? Like, would this be okay? Right. And I'm thinking like, no, it would be fucked up. We would think, but here they're, it's just like, nice. Right. Like, she's cute, nice.
This is kind of weird, huh? Okay.
But yeah, I was just like, if these roles were reversed, like, this movie would come to a screeching halt.
Yeah, that'd definitely be a power move.
But as it goes, we're just going to be like, nah, it's fine. It's fine. Let's pave over it. So Billy is like, really like afraid and basically just wants to give his powers back to the wizard and have the wizard deal with this. He feels like out of his depth, basically. But the wizard refuses. And he I don't remember exactly what he says, but he kind of gives Billy some sort of inspirational speech about why he chose him. And that ends up like giving Billy the confidence to...
Which is weird because the whole movie, the wizard's like, why'd I choose this kid? And then at the end, he's like, see, I made the right decision.
I know. Billy has a touching moment with his foster mom where he finally calls her mom, which... I guess it was a good emotional beat. I mean, in a movie like this, there's not a lot of time to really set that up. It's not like, because it's not like they had a shitty relationship. Like, he definitely liked her.
Yeah, I was surprised he wouldn't call her mom because he was so intent on having a family, But yeah, I'm glad he got to that point.
Yeah, it was a good scene.
Yeah.
Let's see. So now we get Anne. She pleads for Lucy Liu to stop, and I think that's where she mentions that, like, the tree was meant to be planted in our land where it would have been beautiful, but here, like, it's destroying everybody. Mm-hmm. But that was Lucy Liu's intention because she hates humanity. But now Helen Mirren ends up agreeing with Anne that it's wrong what they're doing. So I don't know if Lucy Liu actually can control the dragon, but the dragon here like impales Helen Mirren and seemingly kills her.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure about the relationship with the dragon either because it was their father's dragon, and it seemed like Lucy Liu had like the control over it for the most part.
It did seem like that, yeah. She also tries to kill Anne. Anne uses her Doctor Strange-like powers to like port herself like, many, many blocks away. But somehow the like Lucy Liu shot a bolt at her from the staff, and somehow that bolt magically still like followed her and hits Anne and takes away her powers.
Even though it didn't do that to anybody else throughout the movie.
I know. Yeah, you're right. Because like, if it could somehow follow people like that, how come they couldn't? She couldn't have just like, okay, I'm sending out 6 lightning
Yeah.
bolts, and they're just gonna follow you until it hits you.
Exactly. Little heat-seeking missiles.
It's yeah. So that's another like very inconsistent type thing. So basically, the plan now is that Billy is going to go confront Lucy Liu, while at the same time, I guess the rest of the team members are meant to distract all the Greek monsters away so he can deal with her. So we get a scene in the van where they're talking about like what can beat these monsters, and the wizard says that the only thing that the monsters fear are unicorns, which Darla is really into. And there was like a scene early on in the movie where like Darla made this diorama of like unicorns defeating Genghis Khan or some really random thing. So Steve the Pen writes that unicorns live in dark caverns and are attracted to ambrosia, which they mention is like, a honey type substance. So now we cut to Shazam, like he hits the dragon like full force into a building, but then the dragon hits Shazam into a bunch of cars and lights him on fire with his magical fire, which actually burns and hurts Shazam. So now we know that he can be hurt basically with magic. I might be getting some of this off of when it happens, but so Shazam like throws lightning bolts, which like bounce off the dome, and they end up like coming back and hitting the staff. And he mentions that, it's like a battery, like it's absorbing the electricity. And so I guess he gets into his head here that he can use that to kind of turn the staff into like a bomb or something.
Right.
So I wrote, the team conveniently finds a unicorn in a dark cavern. So this whole thing I thought was pretty dumb. And so Darla ends up, she doesn't have, when they mentioned that ambrosia was like honey, I thought, maybe they'll go get some honey or something.
Right.
But no, since they set it up that she likes Skittles.
Product placement.
I know. This was such shameless product placement.
Was brutal. It beat us over the head with this one.
I agree. Like sometimes, like I get that these movies are expensive and they got to find a way, but sometimes product placement it gets a little outrageous. And this, oh my God, Skittles. Skittles paid their money here. So yeah, she feeds it Skittles to get the unicorns, and basically, like she feeds this one unicorn, and like a bunch of others just show up, and so Mary's like, "Oh, we're gonna need more Skittles."
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, that was shameless.
For sure.
So now Billy. Now I don't remember why exactly, because like when Billy and Lucy Liu were fighting before, it seemed like Lucy Liu kind of had the upper hand, but after he like hit the wand or whatever, she must have went away because they split up at some point. So at this point, Billy ends up finding Helen Mirren and kind of zaps her back to life, and she agrees to help him. And I forget, he might mention that like, something about, could I turn it into a bomb? And she was like, yeah, but that would kill everybody in the bubble. And he's like, okay, I'm going to need your help for one more thing then. So now we cut to the team as they ride a herd of unicorns and defeat the monsters.
Yeah.
Which, again, is pretty stupid because, like, they're like, I guess just like impaling the monsters with the unicorn horns. Yeah. But I'm like, really? Like 6 of them or whatever on these unicorns can defeat all these ones, and the harpies can fly.
Right.
How are they defeating the harpies that can easily fly?
I don't know.
It was just stupid. That whole subplot bothered me.
Yeah, it seemed like just a kid-friendly thing, I guess.
I guess, but between the shameless Skittles promotion and just the stupidity of it and the convenience of it, I really didn't like any of that. So, I forgot to set this up. So, like, when the others were going to find the unicorns, Freddy happened to see Anne, who had just been depowered. So he's been following her and, like, yelling her name, but she's too far away, he can't quite get her attention. And he finally does catch up to her, but just as he catches up to her, Lucy Liu shows up on the dragon, and is about to kill both Anne and Freddy. But Billy shows up in the nick of time, grabs the dragon by the tail, and he also causes a distraction where he ends up getting the he gets the staff back from Lucy Liu at this point, which he basically uses that to lure her back to the sports arena. But a part of me is like, wouldn't it almost been smarter for him to like quickly have Freddy and Anne get their powers back, and then like bring it to find the others and give them their powers back, so then they could just like gang up and have a better chance?
I'll go a step further. Couldn't he just have taken Lucy Liu's powers with the staff?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, if he would have just zapped her.
Yeah.
With one of those that follows her, of course. Yeah, so there's I didn't even think about that, but you're right. This movie does have a lot of plot holes we're finding. Okay, so Billy uses the staff to lure Lucy Liu back to the sports arena. And Helen Mirren uses her powers to now shrink the dome. So now it's just Shazam, Billy, Lucy Liu, and the dragon in the dome. Now, I also thought this was convenient. So they needed an excuse to have Lucy Liu for a second stop paying attention to Shazam. So Lucy Liu is basically, I wrote conveniently distracted by Helen Mirren. And so she has Helen Mirren, or the dragon, blow fire towards Helen Mirren, even though she's obviously protected by the dome and the dragon can't get to her.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of stupid, but basically they do that just so Billy has time to go to the edge of the dome and say goodbye to his family through the dome. And I don't even really remember what their conversation was. It was mostly like, we get the sense that he's going to sacrifice himself, and they're like, no, don't do it, Billy, basically. Yeah. And I think he has a line where he's like, oh, I was so desperate to keep us all together, but really, like, we should be apart or something. I don't know.
He's like, the way to keep us together is to keep you guys together, like, alive.
Right. So Billy uses his lightning to supercharge the staff and I guess turn it into a bomb. He has this whole dramatic thing where the dragon's breathing his fire. He's going through the fire using the staff. And once he gets to the dragon and Lucy Liu, he says, Shazam. The whole thing explodes and the dome. Helen Mirren turns to dust, so I guess she's dead pretty good now.
Or she's in a prison somewhere.
That's true. Yeah, if they do a third movie, she'll just be in prison. And everybody's like, where's Billy? They're running, Billy, where are you? And they find Billy's dead body. So I wrote, they have a very unofficial funeral where they bury Billy's body. And this was one thing, I'm like, did they notify like the foster care system that, oh, this kid in our care died, and we're gonna actually have a funeral that humans have for people? No, they're just like, let's just find a patch of land and bury him.
Well, I mean, that patch of land looked like it was really high up, like off of a cliffside.
That's another thing. Where was that?
I don't know, but
it almost looked like they were in Greece or something.
Yeah, how'd they get up there, and how'd they get his body up there?
I was like wondering the same thing. Where were they? But yeah, I just thought it was funny that they're like, I'm like, there's no way they contacted anybody about him dying.
Hey, foster care?
Like, they don't pay. We're still getting those checks for 5 months, right? So yeah, they're all there, and the wizard mentions that the staff has no more magic, and that only a god could bestow it with magic. But unfortunately, all those gods are dead. And right on cue, we get that metal Wonder Woman theme. Wonder Woman shows up and reignites the wand, which gives Anne her powers back and brings Billy back to life. And him as Shazam comes out of the grave. I mean, I don't know. Like, What did you think about this?
I think it had to happen if they wanted to keep him in. They had to keep him in the universe, right? Like,
I mean, I knew he wasn't going to stay dead.
yeah. And it makes me think that possibly Gal Gadot could have a future in this universe. Like, maybe she'll come back. I'm not
I mean,
sure.
they've said they're leaving the door open,
Okay.
but I don't know.
I like her Wonder Woman. I'm a fan of her Wonder Woman. So
Yeah, I mean, I like her as Wonder Woman. It's just I think the continuity of the DCU is such a mess that
yeah,
I'm wondering if they can save it.
yeah, that's true.
I'm hoping so. I'm hopeful.
Yeah,
I still do like that metal Wonder Woman theme though.
yeah, I like it.
It's cool.
Yeah,
So now we skip forward a few months, and do you know, like, I get the sense that like their house that was completely destroyed is rebuilt, or do we think they're just in a whole new house?
I think it's rebuilt because they're working on it, right? They're like nothing's working. Everything's
Oh, that's
broken.
right. They mentioned like the doorbell's broken or so.
And we left out this part, but when the sister had that conversation with Billy about having to move out because they can't be taken care of, it turns out that the foster parents had actually bought the house out. They had bought the house.
Oh yeah, there was a
and
line.
They let Billy know that you can always stay with us no matter how old you are.
Right, you're right.
You'll always be part of our family. So, yeah.
But yeah, they're at the house that's being rebuilt. They're eating dinner, and the wizard shows up dressed as a pimp. So like he mentions that like he's been in prison, so now he's just gonna like go, I guess, roam their Earth and like have adventures, and he takes the staff back. And Billy's like, oh, this is something I forgot to mention, is like all throughout the movie, like Billy has this running thing where he's like, what should my superhero name be?
Oh, right.
And like at one point, like even one of the citizens, like as an Easter egg mentions, like calls him Captain Marvel, which is of course his original name in the comics, but now Marvel uses that for the Carol Danvers character. But he's like, easy, your name should be Shazam. And he's like, oh, right, that makes sense, or whatever. And then I think Freddy's like, nah, I still don't like it, or something. Or we can do better, yeah. So that leads to the credits, where we get a little less conversation by Elvis. And then once those are over, we got two end credit stingers. So stinger number one, Steve Agee and James Gunn's wife try to recruit Billy to what they call the JSA, the Justice Society. But do we think, like, are they actually trying to recruit him to their like little like peacemaker gang, which obviously isn't the Justice Society of America? Do you think they're just calling it that to make it more appealing for him to join their team?
No, I think it was really like with that team with the Falcon or whatever his name is, Hawkman.
Okay, yeah, that
and them. I think he was trying to get him onto that team.
Because I guess James Gunn's wife did have that appearance in Black Adam. So like, well, I guess if they're like somewhat working for Waller, but I don't know how they're fitting all that together. I really don't.
Yeah, they haven't done enough to tell us like what's really going on there.
It's one of the reasons I am very curious to see Flash, is because I don't know how they're going to make this all gel. Because it definitely seems like they don't want Black Adam to be really in continuity, I wouldn't think.
Right. With Flash, I've heard that they're going to pick and choose. Like, they're going to keep some of the stuff that's happened already, and they're going to get rid of some of the stuff. So
that would make sense, just so that they can use some of the same actors. Now, I mean, so this is what you were kind of referencing at the very beginning. So do you think going forward that they are going to keep using Shazam? Personally, like, even though I have nothing against Shazam, I almost would prefer they just not use him anymore.
I mean, he's not as intriguing as a character as anybody that we know of in DC, like the Flash and Superman and Batman. He's definitely not on the level of Wonder Woman or anything. But I mean, how Marvel made Guardians of the Galaxy work, So I mean, if they can fit him in, and I mean, even Ant-Man had an integral part in Infinity War, and he was kind of like the Shazam of that universe in a way. So They could make it work. It just depends on the writing.
My whole thing, though, is like the whole gimmick of Shazam and what makes him appealing as a character is that he's a little kid, the mind of a little kid in someone with the powers of Superman, which is both scary but
Yeah.
but interesting.
Right.
But we know, at least in this continuity, that he's an adult. So like he's just another adult, someone with a young adult, but an adult. With the powers of Shazam, and so that's less interesting to me.
I'm still on board with it. It's kind of like Spider-Man. He's a young person navigating his way. He's still learning. He's got all this other stuff behind him too, like the foster care system and stuff he's dealt with in his youth. So, I mean, he's kind of like a broken person who's putting it all together, and I'm intrigued by that to some extent.
So you'd be up for seeing more Shazam going forward? Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what they do with it, but I find it. I'm more and more puzzled as I see these of like when they do reboot, like what they're doing to pick and choose, or like. Are they maybe going to be like, yeah, we're still going to have Shazam. Maybe it's even still going to be played by Zachary Levi, but maybe his past is different, or the kid is different, or they could go a lot of different avenues.
Yeah, I mean,
I was kind of surprised they had this particular scene because I was like, I would think they would. This makes it seem like they're locked into something I wouldn't think they would necessarily go for, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, I was surprised that they were going to keep going, or it seems like they might continue down this path. It really seemed like they were cutting off a lot of those limbs that they didn't want.
Yeah, because for me, even though they are going to seemingly keep like certain things from this continuity, I want most of it to be reset to zero. To be honest,
yeah, I agree with that.
And so it just gets a little gray when I see scenes like this.
Yeah.
And then Stinger number 2 was Professor Ivo from the first movie. Is visited by Mr. Mind, who is a caterpillar with a voice box. He's like an alien creature in prison again. And I said, seemingly setting up a sequel that will probably never happen.
Right. Because they had this scene before, too, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I believe this was the Stinger of the first movie.
Yeah.
And so, like, they make a joke that, like, he's been in that prison for 2 years, and Mr. Mind, like, he's setting up things, but since he's a caterpillar, he takes forever to do so.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, was this just meant to be kind of a joke and something that'll, like, never lead to anything? Or are they trying to set up something for the future?
I don't know.
Even if they were trying to set up something for the future, I don't think this will ever pay off.
Right. I don't see how this could be part of a bigger storyline, like where you got the whole Justice League involved against this worm caterpillar.
Well, I believe in the comics, Mr. Mind can actually like burrow into like people's brains and control them.
Oh, okay. I mean, one person at a time, though. Like,
I think so.
I guess you just do it to Superman, of all people.
Yeah, in fact, I think there might be comic book stories where he takes over like powerful people, but I'm not super familiar with that character.
Okay. I never heard of him before this movie.
Mr. Mind. But yeah, that was Shazam Fury of the Gods. So AJ, it comes to that time we have with every movie. What would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
I think I'm right there with you. 6 out of 10. Like, it's not terrible, but as we kind of went through this, I'm seeing like even more plot holes than I came up with here.
Right.
And I'm like, there was. I think the script could have used a few more passes, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
There's a lot of convenience, a lot of cliches, a lot of humor that doesn't land. But at the same time, it's not like hard to watch. It's not offensively terrible. But to me, this is you don't need to see it in theaters, really. Like, if you thought the first one was a ball and absolutely loved it, yeah, go see this in theaters. I think you're going to have a good time. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, nah, you can wait. To me, this is going to be a pretty forgettable movie.
Agreed.
All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this bad boy up?
Next week we're thinking John Wick.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll bring Liam to that and see how he likes it.
The first second a knife goes through someone's eye.
Wouldn't that be funny if you brought him and he was actually into it? He's like, she's like, this is the kind of violence I can get behind. Just John Wick murking fools.
Yeah. I got my mom on board. She loves John Wick.
Dude, I find that so awesome. Like, because I did actually, I think, watch at least the first two John Wick movies I watched with my parents.
Yeah.
And like, my dad's fine with it because he likes action movies or whatever. But my mom didn't. She just thought it was nonsense. You know, I think it's so cool that like your mom's on board for John Wick movies. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure. she's coming back from India like next month, and we're gonna go watch John Wick together too. So I'm gonna go back and watch.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing because I sometimes like I listen to podcasts and like sometimes like there'll be like people that say like their parents are like into video games. Mm-hmm. And that's like awesome to me too. I was like, what would that be like? Because like my parents like played, like my mom got into Tetris a little bit back in the day, and like she'll play like very casual like iPad games and stuff. And my dad just, you know, he thinks it's nonsense pretty much. But I'm like, what would that be like? Because that's like kids this generation, they're all going to grow up with like most of their parents being gamers and into video games. But to me, that just sounds like such a foreign concept. Like I almost couldn't imagine like my dad playing video games.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. Like if I ever picked up the controller and played like Call of Duty with my parents, that would be wild. I could not imagine that.
Your mom's like really into it, like she's John Wick. She's just like killing it. It'd be cool, but yeah, it just sounds so foreign to us. Like our parents' generation just not into video games by and large.
Yeah, I think the young generation now has a pretty good situation. I'm going to play games with the nephews, so that'll be fun too. And I know Lester plays, and you know he plays mostly like Super Mario, stuff like that. But
yeah, like right now his kids are like, you know, really into like Minecraft and Roblox, like a lot of kids are. Hopefully once they get in a few years they'll get into more
God of War.
Yeah, God of War in-depth games, which actually they'll probably just get into Fortnite because that's what all the teenage kids seem to be into.
That's true.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. We do thank everybody very much. We really like doing these reviews, so we hope you guys like listening to them. Please give us your feedback. We do enjoy comments. Go ahead and, if you will, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. And you can even go over to Twitter and follow us on Twitter. Where can people find you, AJ?
At A Name for This Too, and that's the number 2.
And you can, of course, find me at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And that's going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.
And have a good one.